The 2024 presidential election is just a few weeks away. So now I want to answer the question that several home buyers and sellers have been asking me. What effect, if any, do elections have on the housing market? It's a great question because buying and selling a home is a major decision, and it's natural to wonder how such a major event might impact your plans. Historically, presidential elections have had only a small temporary impact on the housing market. So here's the latest on exactly what happens to home sales, prices, and mortgage rates throughout those time periods. Let's start with home sales. During the month of November, in years when the presidential election takes place, there's typically a slight slowdown in home sales. As Ali Wolf, a chief economist, recently explained, usually home sales are unchanged compared to a non-election year, with the exception being November. In an election year, November is slower than normal. This is mostly because some people feel uncertain and hesitant about making big decisions during such a pivotal time. However, it's important to know that this slowdown is temporary. Historically, home sales bounce back in December and continue to rise the following year. In fact, the data from the Department of Housing and Urban Development and the National Association of Realtors shows that after 9 of the last 11 presidential elections, home sales went up the next year, as you can see here. The graph shows annual home sales going back to 1978. Each year with a presidential election is noted in blue, and the year immediately after the election is in green, if the existing home sales rose that year. The 2 orange bars represent the only years when home sales decreased after an election. Now, what about home prices? Do they drop during election years? The answer is not typically. As residential appraiser and housing analyst Ryan Lundquist puts it, an election year doesn't alter the price trend that is already happening in the market. Home prices are pretty resilient. They generally rise year over year, regardless of elections. The latest data from NAR shows that after 7 of the last 8 presidential elections, home prices increased the following year. Just like the previous graph, this graph shows election years in blue. The only year when prices declined after an election is in orange, and that was in 2008 during the housing market crash, which was far from a typical year. Today's market is different and much different than it was back then. All the green bars represent when prices rose the following year. So if you're worried about your home losing value because of an election, you can rest easy knowing prices rise after most presidential elections. Now, mortgage rates are important because they affect how much your monthly payment will be when you buy a home. Looking at the last 11 presidential election years, data from Freddie Mac shows mortgage rates decreased from July to November in 8 of them. And this year, we're following the same trend of declining rates leading up to the previous elections. And rates have come down from 7.1% this July to 6.3% today. So if you're looking to buy a home in the near future, this could be good news, as lower rates could mean a lower monthly payment for you. So what's the big takeaway? While presidential elections do have some impact on the housing market, the effects are usually small and temporary. For most buyers and sellers, elections don't have a major impact on their plans. While it's natural to feel a bit uncertain during an election year, history shows the housing market remains strong and resilient. If you'd like to discuss any of the information from today's video, or if you'd like to discuss your current real estate plans, please reach out to me, as I'd love to speak with you. Thanks for watching.